everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I'm Jorhena Thomas, and I am here with one of our fantastic mentors, Sam Korta. Hi, Sam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be talking with you. So, you all, Sam has had a really awesome career, and we're here to talk about one piece of that. Sam has worked at the intersection of innovation, partnerships, and strategy. And so she's going to talk to us a little bit about that in the context of her work in fusion centers. And if you don't know what a fusion center is, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about it. So, Sam, let's start right there. Can you talk to us about fusion centers? What are they?
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like when I started at Fusion Centers, 9/11 was so not that long ago, and now we are, 2 decades removed from 9/11. But Fusion Centers were actually stood up after 9/11, after the 9/11 Commission report identified that we hadn't properly connected information dots. And so they were stood up. There is a fusion center in every state, at least one, and they were set up to gather or receive, analyze, and share counterterrorism, criminal, and cyber-related threat information across the nation. As I mentioned, there's at least one fusion center in every state, and also them in the main metropolitan areas, so large cities and things like that. If I could give an example to help kind of make that clearer. If you were a state trooper and you're pulling over a suspect for speeding, and that suspect is behaving somewhat erratically, a little evasive, and their hands are shaking, they're avoiding eye contact, they can't seem to answer simple questions about where they're going. And you notice like they have several cell phones and lots of maps. That might seem suspicious, but not enough to do anything about it. Before 9/11, there was no real way to report that to anybody apart from if you had a relationship with like the FBI, you might pick up the phone and call them. After 9/11 with fusion centers, we have a way of reporting suspicious activity and relaying that information and then connecting that information to other information that might connect dots to help us understand if that person might be connected to a broad criminal network or a terrorist organization, to help us connect those dots and prevent things like 9/11 from happening.
So, Sam, so we both have worked at fusion centers in the past, and it's interesting work. And I think that example that you just gave was really good to help people understand that gap that fusion centers are meant to fill. So, can you talk a little bit about like some more of the tangible things that people do in fusion centers? Like, who works at a fusion center, first of all? Is it officers? Is it analysts? Is it who's there? And then what do they do?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because it's probably all of the above, whoever you're thinking about from a law enforcement perspective. And also, one thing for me that I really enjoyed about the Fusion Center was I like to say I don't ever know what I want to do when I grow up. So, Fusion Centers were a great way to help me, at least for the time being, get exposed to a lot of different things. So first, to answer your question about who works in a fusion center, it's so many different kinds of people. It's sworn law enforcement, it's civilian intelligence analysts, it can be firefighters, it can be public works folks. It's all different kinds of representatives who might have access to information that can help do exactly what I said in terms of sharing counterterrorism, criminal, and cyber threat information, all in one location or in a virtual location, sharing that information. And then what do they do? They can process that information that I mentioned, like the officer that would report, which we would call those suspicious activity reports. They might do criminal case support. So there might be a request for folks to help with like a human trafficking investigation or a drug investigation. We might go out and help, we call infrastructure that's so important to our nation to function, critical infrastructure. So we might go and work with critical infrastructure owners and operators to build resilience in that critical infrastructure. We might deploy to critical incidents or special events to help protect those. Or we might do training and outreach with folks to help understand how to identify suspicious activity. We live in a cyber world, so we might do cyber threat intelligence analysis and information sharing, or help respond to incident reports and things like that. There's so many other things that we do as well that I I want to continue this conversation, so I'm not going to name them all, but you have any kind of uh understanding of what we do in Homeland Security or national security, we probably do those in a fusion center to some degree. We like to call it the jack of all trades, because we really do at the ground level have exposure to those kinds of things, just because there's such a need for it at the ground level.
Yes, I think that's well said, Sam. And one of the things I really love about the idea of fusion centers is that they're at that local level, the state level. And so a lot of times when we think about national security, we don't think about all of this stuff happening on the ground that feeds into what happens at the national level. So I think that they're awesome. Okay, so question for you then about translatable skills. If you work in a fusion center, what kind of skills are you going to get? And then how do those translate maybe if you want to go work at a different level, at the national level or and the private sector at a company? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I think there are a lot of different translatable skills that you can bring with you after leaving the Fusion Center, but I would like to name five of them. The first is adaptability. So I
Yeah.
mentioned there's a ton of different work that you're going to do in a fusion center. You're also going to do it in a limited budget with limited resources. So being able to adapt to a changing environment and learning on your feet is going to be critical number one. That's just anywhere you go, you're going to have the need to operate within competing priorities, but you're really going to hit the ground running like that in a fusion center. The second is,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, the second is ambiguity,
Agreed.
and the ability to build what I call building coalitions, which is just understanding that you might not be the one responsible for whatever needs to happen, but you have to work with a bunch of different people to be able to get that information, analyze that information, and get it to the right people. That can be really hard when you don't actually own it, but you need to make sure it gets to the right people. And that's going to happen regardless of where you work, and regardless of where you go. That's going to be a critical skill moving forward. The third one is strategic thinking. Even though in many cases you're working on the ground, boots on the ground, ground truth, it's going to teach you how all the things you do impact the real world. And as you experience that, you'll see how things like policy and things you might do as you move up into strategic thinking really impacts the things that people do in the real world, which has such a great impact on your ability to write policy and do strategic thinking, that is experience that you can't get anywhere else. The fourth is professional growth. So what's cool about being part of the Fusion Center world is you're connected to all kinds of training and experiences, not only within your state or your agency, but also to the federal agencies that provide all kinds of trainings and resources that you can take advantage of while you're there. So you have all kinds of breadth of professional growth and experiences that will help you become a better professional before you even leave. And then finally, networking. I know girl security understands networking because that is literally one of the core tenets of what you do. And the ability to connect with people across local, state, federal, and private sector organizations and build a network of people that you will take with you throughout your entire career is just paramount in terms of translatable skills and learning how to understand what they do compared to what you do and how you can all work together in a mutually reinforcing way is just, it's beautiful.
Sam, that was beautiful. I feel like you should take that and put that into a LinkedIn post because a lot of people could benefit from those five things that you just shared. So thank you for that. And I agree with everything you said. And before we wrap this up, I want to say to those of you who are listening who are not necessarily based in Washington, D.C., where a lot of the Homeland and National Security things are happening, check out your local police department or Homeland Security Agency or Emergency Management Agency. They might host your local fusion center, and it might be a great way to get some exposure, get an internship, and get a feel for these things that Sam has been talking about, because I think I can speak for both of us that it was great experience working in a fusion center, and we learned so much that we can then take with us, as Sam so beautifully laid out. So Sam, thank you so much for sharing these insights with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. Girl Security is such a wonderful organization, and I just adore working with you all and will continue to do so.
We didn't pay her to say that, by the way. Bye, Sam.